Anthony Fauci was brought up on Capitol Hill this week to testify before Congress. During the proceedings, he invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination over 100 times. When asked why he chose this strategy, he said he was trying to avoid a perjury trap, so he just chose to shush it on up. This is a fantastic strategy, and one endorsed by lawyers everywhere. I, however, have come up with my own novel idea for how to avoid perjury. It's called truth-telling, and I know that Anthony Fauci is allergic to truth, but it's a fantastic way to make sure you don't come across like Johnny Tightlips. Fauci, I don't want you to forget you got pardoned. None of your terrible lies are going to come back to haunt you. You should be living it up like the Bond villain you are. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Welcome in, everyone. Glad to have you here with me today. We really have two topics we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about this lady in Minnesota who just got found guilty of using the N-word. And we're going to talk about Anthony Fauci testifying before Congress. We got no favorite comment from last week, so I want to get right into it with this. Topic one, hate speech conviction. Technically, that's not true. Technically, it's not a hate speech conviction. We're going to get into that. I want to do a little bit of the story in case you missed this news story. It's just ridiculous from top to bottom. There is a lady. Name is Shiloh Hendricks. She is a 37-year-old woman from Minnesota. She was in a park in Rochester, which is a city up north. And while she's at the park, she alleged, we don't know this for a fact, but this is what the allegation is. She alleged that this little 8-year-old black kid reached into her diaper bag and took something and then tried to run off. She confronted the boy and I guess also the boy's father at some point and called the little black kid the N-word. And the father tried to defend him and say, well, he's autistic. He doesn't understand boundaries. He took it, but it's not a big deal. I think it's pretty much confirmed that he did, in fact, take something from her bag, although at some point they said, oh, it's just on the bench next to her bag. But whatever, it belonged to Shiloh, and this little kid took something that doesn't belong to him. Anyway, the woman got in sort of an argument with the dad and called the little boy the N-word. Okay, so there's another person at the park. It's this guy. Hold on, what's his name? I got to pull it up here. His name is something weird. Sharmaka, Omar is his last name. But this guy is in the park. Why he's in the park, I still don't know the answer to, because he didn't have a kid there. And he's a weirdo who's been charged with crimes against minors before. So I don't know why he's in the park or why we're acting like this guy's done a good thing. But anyway, this guy's in the park. He overhears the thing. He says, oh, my God, how dare this woman use the N-word? He pulls out his camera. He starts filming her. He then sort of follows her around as she's leaving the park and says, oh, say it again. Say it again. Come on, do it. Say it. What, are you afraid because you're on camera? And then eventually she says the word a couple more times. Okay, that's the story, top to bottom. Should this be a news story, a national news story? No, it shouldn't. But it is. And because it is, we got to talk about this stupid kind of stuff. Because personal interactions and fights and personal behavior are going to be used as an indicative thing about the racial problems, the racial strife in America because some woman in Minnesota used the N-word against some Somali immigrant and his child. So that's the story in a nutshell. The problem, if this was just an interaction between two people, I wouldn't care at all. Could not care less about some woman saying something mean to some guy. Yeah, it's racial and ugly. I'm not going to endorse it. That's a bad thing to do. You shouldn't call people the N-word. All right, fine. We're all in agreement. Do I care? No. Do I think that the dad shouldn't use the fact that his child's autistic to justify their stealing out of somebody's diaper bag? Yeah, I think that's kind of a bad thing to do. You should control your child. I don't care that they're autistic. If they're going around stealing things, that should be your problem, not somebody else's problem. You don't get to say, no, it's fine that he took the applesauce out of the bag, he's autistic, deal with it. No. I don't know how the whole thing went before the recording goes, but again, I can't help but feel like there probably was some back and forth there where he tried to say it wasn't a big deal that this kid stole something out of the bag. Because the woman went straight to 100. Obviously, she's like a crazy person. And everything I've seen about her since says she's not a crazy person. Might be a bad person. Might be a racist person. I'm not 100% sure. There's a potential that people have used the N-word who aren't racist, but I don't think. I think that's a very low percentage of people who say it in anger, I should say. Because plenty of people have said the N-word, and I would say they're not racist. You know, you're singing along to a rap song or you're joking around with your friend who's black and they give you the N pass. It doesn't mean you're a racist. But if you say it in anger, like in an argument with a black person, you probably got a little bit of racism. So anyway, doesn't matter. My point is, this should not be a news story. It's stupid, but it is. So this guy who's filming her puts the video online. It becomes this whole thing. Ultimately, this is the part of the story that is actually interesting. Because that interaction by itself, who cares? I don't care. Two people in a park in Minnesota get in an argument. One of them says something nasty. I don't really care. The part of it that I really do care about is the part that came afterwards. And there's a DA named Michael Spindler Cragg who charged Hendricks with 2 counts of disorderly conduct. One for her actions towards the child, and then another one for the guy with her actions in regards to the man who videotaped her afterwards. So she went to trial for these 2 things, and she was found guilty on one count and innocent on the other. So they found her innocent for the one that had to do with the child and guilty for the one that had to do with the man. I think part of it hinged on the fact that none of the interactions with the child were actually recorded. The only thing that were recorded were the interactions between her and the guy who was filming it. By the way, just want to point this out for a second. This is the guy who was filming the interaction, this paragon of virtue. Here he is. Oh, here's his mugshot. That's him right there on the right, this guy. He was, this is his mugshot for when they alleged that here it is right here. Joint charges with him and that other guy. 3rd and 5th degree criminal sexual conduct, accused of raping a 16-year-old after offering her a place to stay. That's him. That's the guy. So this guy right here who's so outraged about hearing the N-word is an alleged pederast. So I don't really care what he has to say, and I think no one else should either. That's a little side point. But the woman, this Shiloh Hendricks, she was found guilty. She had a $1,000 fine. She had a suspended jail sentence, placed on probation, and has to do 200 hours of community service. Theoretically, she could go to jail for this. If she were to violate probation in some way or not complete her community service, refuse to pay the fine, she's going to jail. She's going to jail for saying the N-word. Now, again, I don't really care that the kid's autistic. I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I think that this entire thing is ugly, but it shouldn't be illegal. Here's the problem I have an issue with, okay? Where we're talking about this. We're talking about freedom of speech. Hate speech, not a crime. Never been a crime. It has been well established that hate speech is not illegal in the United States. I could drop the N-bomb right now. I can use slurs against Jews or whatever, pick a group. Asians, I'm sure I could call all you whiteys out there crackers and honkies. I can use slurs against people if I want to choose to be an ass. All right, you shouldn't do those things, but you can do them legally. It doesn't mean there's not repercussions. It doesn't mean there's not consequences for doing that. You could be fired from your job. You can be socially ostracized, but you can't go to jail for these things. They're not illegal, okay? That's the important part of this. Now, hate crimes are illegal. You're not allowed to attack somebody based on one of these characteristics I just described. And sometimes hate crimes and hate speech have been conflated in ways that I dislike. So, for example, you'll see people who've gone to jail or been arrested for doing a burnout on a rainbow crosswalk, which, again, I think if we elevated that to the Supreme Court, I don't think that holds up. I actually think that would be a form of, you would not be able to get them on hate speech, I don't think, if that went to the Supreme Court. You get them on vandalism, but not hate speech, because I think that you can't arrest them for hate speech because, again, hate speech isn't a crime. So they treat it like a hate crime in a different way, but technically I think that would fall under the realm of hate speech and should be protected. Again, not a nice thing to do. Doesn't matter. We're getting off. This is ugly. It's ugly what this woman did. You shouldn't call a little child bad words, period. But you definitely shouldn't be dropping racial epithets on some little 8-year-old autistic kid. The guy, I don't really care. Call him whatever you want. He seems like an asshole. So I don't really care what she did to the guy. The problem I have with it, though, is that the way that they arrested her, the way that they charged her, is for this idea of disturbing the peace. Or disorderly conduct. I'm sorry. Disorderly conduct. They got around this idea because they said, well, the word is not illegal. You can't make the word illegal. You're not allowed to do that. You can't censor speech in that way. You can't really control what people say in certain regards. That is not true to 100%, because the way that they got around this is by relying on the way that we infringe on freedom of speech in a right way, in a good way. This is the way I support. So you say, there's a couple things you're not allowed to say. I can say most things. Freedom of speech is important. There's some things I'm not allowed to say. I can't make threats. I can't engage in what they call fighting words. I can't say, I'm going to box your nose, or put your hands up, we're going to fight, or everybody go kick that guy's ass because I don't like him. I can't say these things. I can't incite violence. I can't threaten people. I can't slander people. I can't make up lies about people and just say them. I can't libel people. So I can't write lies about people. I can't slander people. I'm not allowed to do these things. And so these are good. These are there are some laws about obscenity that have existed. You can make an argument one way or the other, whether you support them. But there are ways that freedom of speech has been curtailed. This is a dangerous one, though, to me, because she didn't engage in fighting words. She said something nasty. She didn't threaten the guy. She didn't say anything. She wasn't acting aggressive in any of the videos I saw. She was kind of walking away from the guy. You can't say the guy felt threatened by her. She wasn't making threats. He was following her. You don't get to claim self-defense and then follow somebody with a camera and claim that, for example, if he followed her with a camera and she turned around and pushed him, am I going to say, well, she did something wrong? No. I really think you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't be able to just follow someone around with a camera and put it in their face and yell at them and do all these things. That is threatening to me. So they got around this by charging her with disorderly conduct. And I think it opens a dangerous door, because this is a way that you're going to find activists, DAs, and judges who are going to try and skirt the law and curtail things that they don't like. This is a way that you censor speech. Again, you don't like the N-word. You say, well, the N-word's bad. Therefore, we're going to elevate it to the level of fighting words. Well, then is every insult a fighting word? Am I allowed to call anyone a jerk? I say, hey, you dummy. And they say, well, whoa. Those are fighting words because you insulted somebody. No. We know that they're not. It's not. The N-word is an ugly word. You shouldn't use it. All right, I'll go on record. I'm brave enough to say you shouldn't use the N-word. All right, you shouldn't do it. It's bad thing to do. However, I don't think that it elevates to the same as a threat. If I was to go on the street corner and I put on my blindfold and I put on my noise-canceling headphones and I sit there and I just have a little microphone and I just say the N-word over and over and over again on the street corner, am I inciting anyone? Obviously, you could say, well, this is patently offensive. You shouldn't do this. If I walk around Die Hard 3, and I have the billboard on, and I don't remember exactly what it says, but it has the N-word on there anyway. And I walk around with a billboard, and it says bad words on it. And someone comes up and punches me. Are they allowed to do that? The answer is no. Well, if somebody engages in fighting words, I'm kind of allowed to defend myself. If somebody threatens me or is aggressive with me, I have a right to defend myself. That's what we're calling fighting. That's what we're saying right now, is that this woman acted in a way that if that guy who was filming her would have attacked her, you say, all right, well, it would have been justified because she was obviously aggressive and she was engaging in fighting words or disorderly conduct towards him, so he had the right to defend himself. No. That's not what happened. If you see the video, I'm not going to play the video because it's useless. It's a minute long, and I'd have to bleep it because they just say the N-word every 5 seconds. So that's not what happened. It's not what we're saying, and it's a bad thing. And I also think this other thing, this little side part of it is also ugly. The lady made $900,000 from this incident. She's going to be a millionaire because of this incident, because of a give, go, send, or GoFundMe, one of the other things. She raised money for this. And the family of the little black child also raised money, about $330,000. Now, some of this was a response to that absolutely appalling Carmelo Anthony Give Send Go. What is that website called? Give Send Go, is that right? Where he raised a bunch of money for the family of that kid who murdered that other person at the track meet. And so they said, well, if you're going to just give people who murder white children money, then we're going to just give it to the white person who says the N-word. And again, I think it's ugly on both ways. You shouldn't have given money to Carmelo Anthony. I'm sorry if you were misled into thinking that he was justifiable in his actions. And if you're so deluded as to still think that, I don't know what to say to you. I think your moral compass is bankrupt. It is spinning in a circle with no true north if you think that Carmelo Anthony had any justifiable rationale for murdering what was the other kid's name? The kid at the track meet. I'm sorry, I can't remember the other one's name off the top of my head. But it's just like, but at the same time, we shouldn't give money to a woman just because she got arrested for using the N-word. Not somebody I want to support. I think the whole thing is ridiculous. This whole thing is ugly. And I'm just so sick of this racialized politics. We're not even touching on the fact that the families are Somali, because I don't really think that has anything to do with it. I think they were just black. But really, the entire thing wouldn't have happened if we didn't have all these Somalis in there. I don't know if this Omar is here legally or not, but the second you were arrested, we should have sent him back to his pirate-infested country and never looked back. I don't understand what the Somali population brings to America. What are we doing at this point? I know what they've taken, which is billions of dollars in fraud, but what are they contributing? I don't know, because when you look at the statistics, the majority of them, even first generation after their parents, the majority of them are on a dole, the government dole. They are net takers from the system. They don't pay into the system. They take from the system. Not even counting the way that they take with fraud, just legally. They are all on the government teat, and I think it's ridiculous. And I think at this point we should just send the Somalis back to Somalia. So denaturalize them, baby. Send them back to Somalia. I don't know what they're contributing to America. They don't seem to particularly like America. So, and that includes Ilhan Omar and her husband brother. So let's just start there and work our way down. Anyway, let's move on to topic 2, Fauci's testimony. Now, this is not the first time Anthony Fauci has been called to testify, but it is kind of a funny one because unlike the other ones where he could get a little contentious and a little annoying, this time he just didn't answer any questions. He invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination 100 times. You say, wow, that's impressive. That's a lot of times saying the same thing and kind of annoying. I mean, he's just annoying in a different way, Anthony Fauci. This is because his rationale, his justification was that he's not going to answer any questions because Rand Paul has a vendetta against him. He seems to have an obsession, a vendetta. Rand Paul wants to put him in jail. I say good for Rand Paul. That's just me. But he wanted to avoid a perjury trap. And a perjury trap basically is when you get someone out there and you have them talk until they say something that turns out to be untrue, and then you try them for perjury, which is lying under oath. So basically, he said, I wanted to avoid that. And I think it's important to know that the easiest way to avoid a perjury trap is to shut up. So he chose that route. But another really easy way is just to tell the truth. And I think Fauci has difficulty with that because I think if he told the truth, his reputation would take a major hit. And for everything that he happens to be, the number one thing on the list is a self-aggrandizing megalomaniac. If we were to deflate Fauci's ego, he would shrink down like a popped balloon, and he'd probably be about this tall. That guy is just the most full of himself human being that I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how people want to sit up there and deify him as though he has done anything good for America. He didn't do the AIDS crisis well, guys. I don't know what to tell you. He did a lot of really bad things. I think you should read anything about him that is critical, because if you're still of the opinion that Anthony Fauci is a good guy, I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, he's a bad guy. His COVID policies were terrible. He was wrong about everything, and he probably has lied under oath. I remember the testimony that he did one of the first times against Rand Paul where they were going against each other, where Rand Paul basically said the NIH, which you were the head of, was funding gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab in China, which you're claiming there's no way the COVID virus came from. It is absolutely absurd, top to bottom. And Anthony Fauci said, you're a liar. I never have supported gain-of-function research, and I wouldn't do that. And what he did was a very sleight of hand. Let's talk about this real quick, just for some of those of you who don't know. Gain-of-function research should be illegal. We should, as an entire world, we should agree that gain-of-function research, due to COVID alone, should have demonstrated that this is a terrible idea. Gain-of-function research is this. You take a virus and you make it either deadlier or you make it more transmissible so that it is easier to replicate and easier to study. That's it. That's the idea. Gain-of-function research. You're taking viruses, you're making them deadlier, and you're making them so that they replicate more easily. They're more acquirable. You're giving it traits that basically increase how dangerous it is. That's what gain-of-function means. In a nutshell, in a layman's terms, what Anthony Fauci did was he said, I didn't do this. We didn't fund this. There's no way. We would never do gain-of-function research. And then what he did was he basically just made up his own definition of gain-of-function, which nobody else supported or used. Some of them do now, but nobody else supported or used. And then said, by this very narrow definition of what gain-of-function is, we never did that. And he said, well, you weren't making the virus more transmissible? And he said, well, that's not gain-of-function. You don't know what you're talking about, Rand Paul. You silly goose. You're a jerk and you're a liar, and I never did anything wrong ever. Well, they absolutely were funding gain-of-function research. They just chose to redefine it so that gain-of-function didn't mean what it used to mean. Gain-of-function, again, to simplify it, put it in broad spectrum layman's terms, means taking a virus, making it deadlier or more transmissible, making it if we were going to just be incredibly simplistic, making it a worse thing if it were to escape the lab. You're going to make it worse. They were doing that. They absolutely were doing that. The NIH was absolutely funding that. Then they changed the definition of gain-of-function to make it a very technical, more scientific term and said, no, we're not doing that because this definition that we made up, we're not doing it. So anyway, he's a liar. He's a liar. I absolutely think he is partly responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic escaping. It's just absolutely crazy that he's still deified and treated like he was the savior of America when he wasn't. But this time that he's on Capitol Hill right here is absolutely indicative of the person he is. Because even his invoking his Fifth Amendment right might also be illegal. It's not 100% clear to me that it's not. It is pretty well established. When Joe Biden was walking out the door, he did the thing that everyone said, if Trump did this, it would have been the worst thing in the world. They would have said how guilty he was and what a terrible person he was because he had talked about pardoning people before he left office the first time. And everyone said, could you imagine if Donald Trump put pardons to his family or he pardoned himself or he did all these things, what a terrible human being he is. He'd only do it because he's so corrupt and bad and terrible. Well, Joe Biden did it. Joe Biden did the same thing. He pardoned his family, pardoned his friends. He pardoned Anthony Fauci. So Anthony Fauci has a pardon. Here's the thing about the pardon and what you don't understand about the Fifth Amendment, or what he appears not to understand, or his very high-priced lawyer, and I don't understand. We're going to see if this doesn't lead to some contempt of Congress charge. If you have been pardoned for a crime, we'll just make it easy for the sake of the argument. I murder someone. Stab, dead. Killed him. I then get a pardon for this crime. And said, all right, you're pardoned. If I'm called to then testify about this crime, I no longer can invoke the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination because I have been pardoned. I can no longer incriminate myself for the crime. I can't do it. So therefore, because I'm already guilty of the crime, or I've already been considered guilty of the crime, I have no ground to stand on. I have to tell the truth. If I don't, I actually might violate the pardon And theoretically, I could be put in jail despite having been pardoned for the crime. I could be put in jail for either obstructing justice or, in this case, contempt of Congress. So I'll be very curious. I bet Rand Paul will try and look into this. I don't know if anything will happen. Probably not. But you cannot do this. He can't do what he did, in my opinion. And the Supreme Court has established this in the past. You cannot invoke the Fifth if you've taken a plea deal or you've pled guilty or you've received a pardon, any of this stuff. You can't do it. If the guilt is already established, you can't then say, well, I don't want to incriminate myself because it's already happened. So I'll be curious to see what happens. But it demonstrates who he is. He has contempt for the American people and for Congress. And I hope that his legacy is one where everyone realizes how terrible it was. It's important to remember, he was wrong about everything. And he lied about many things, just flat out lied. When he said masks were ineffective, he didn't believe that. Now, they are ineffective. They're not going to do what we were told they do. But he didn't believe that when he said it. What he then came out and said was, well, we didn't want people to go buy them because we might have needed to stockpile them. And if we needed to stockpile them, we didn't want all these people to just go buy them all off the shelves. So he straight up lied to the American people about masks because he didn't want you to have one because he might have needed it. Okay, well, it turns out they don't work anyway. They don't work in the way that we think they do. Sure, if you were wearing a respirator, fine. But cloth masks, the studies on whether or not cloth masks do anything to prevent the spread of viruses, still scanty. And a lot of it just says, no, I'll reduce the risk by 5%. Oh, okay. All right, so nothing. Really nothing. Everyone who got COVID got COVID. Okay, whatever. How about the lockdowns? Were those effective? Did we stop the spread of the virus? The answer obviously is no. Did we do anything to prevent everyone in the U.S. from getting COVID? The answer is no. Did they help at all? Did they do anything to harm people? Oh, yeah, absolutely. We shut businesses. We destroyed the economy. The schools have led to this learning loss that still we've not caught up from. Oh, yeah, terrible idea, the lockdowns. And some of us, me, average guy here, sitting here, never went to college or medical school for infectious disease control or epidemiology. I never did any of this, but I could tell you, hey, these seem like a bad idea. Well, a lot of people were right about this, and the people who were saying, no, you just want to kill everybody, those people all go, gosh, with their little sheepish grin. They say, God, it's time for COVID forgiveness, guys. It's COVID forgiveness. Hey, remember when Joe Biden signed that bill that wanted to fire me from my job if I didn't get the vaccine, which I never got? You remember when Joe Biden did that? I kind of remember. Oh, I didn't forget that they wanted to force everyone in the world to get a vaccine to go to work or live in society. Guys, what happened to that vaccine? Did we stop COVID in its tracks? Did it have any negative repercussions? I mean, it's just ridiculous. This is his legacy, and people still are out here defending this guy. It just drives me absolutely bonkers. But anyway, it was hilarious to watch him testify and just answer no questions. And hear all the Democrats up here. This man's an American hero. The Republicans are just so mean to him. Let him retire. I wish he would have retired. I wish he would have retired 2 decades ago. And maybe I'd have something nice to say about him. Again, if you read any of his stuff about how he handled the AIDS crisis and people want to give him all this credit for, oh my gosh, he saved millions of lives in the AIDS crisis. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Guys, I'm not going to tell you about it. Look it up. Read anything about how he handled the AIDS crisis and tell me that he saved millions of lives. No. This COVID stuff, when we look back on it and we're going to say, man, those Americans, they really handled this poorly. Yeah, there were other countries that handled it better than us. And they didn't do anything crazy. They just had common sense. And actually, for as much talk as America did about following the science, other countries actually followed the science. And they did just fine. And here we are still dealing with the ramifications of terrible policies. Anyway, I was going to talk about this other thing, and I'm kind of debating about it right now. I think we'll get into it. I think I'm going to just mention it right now just because. Hold on one sec. Let me pull this video up. and we can talk about this thing. I wasn't going to mention, I was actually going to talk about it next week, but somebody sent me a video on this topic of cultural normalization. And I wasn't going to talk about it, but I was going to talk about it next week, but we're running a little quick here. So since I got an extra couple minutes, I think I'll just get into it. It's an interesting idea. And the guy in this video, I want to give him credit. So hold on real quick. Oh my, sorry for the loud noises here. So the guy's name is Adrian Markovac. He put this video out on cultural normalization. And I think it's interesting, and I think that he is exactly right. The idea of cultural normalization, and he's talking about it in the way that people dress. And I've always said that athleisure indicates the death of culture, because what happens is, and his idea about cultural normalization, it's not his idea, but what he's talking about, is that the culture doesn't change overnight. The culture changes. Normally, it's from the top down. Despite what we may think, it's not really from the bottom up. It tends to be from the top down. And the culture changes by moving the Overton window, attempting to move it so far and then dialing it back. So what do I mean by this? I mean that we start with let's imagine it's the 1950s, okay? The 1950s, culture is at a certain place. And then what happens? Well, then a big event will happen. Something will happen and everyone goes, this is terrible. Something comes into culture. He's using clothing as an example. So you see, some people start dressing a little bit more provocative. And we're moving a little bit because people don't like it at first. They go, I can't believe people dress that way. These young people dress that way. But it happens, and it happens slowly. Fashion starts to change a little bit. They get a little bit more provocative. And then that becomes the normal. And it's like, oh my gosh, look at them. They're showing ankle. Oh, the women are going to wear bikinis now. Oh, they're going to dress a little bit more revealing. Maybe they're going to start showing some cleavage. And it happens slowly, until you get to a spot where today, the average young woman walking around on the street, if you put her back 50 years ago, they would say, Jesus, look at this prostitute out here. I can't believe they're walking around this way, and how the cultural values, the morals, the norms have changed so much that we wouldn't even recognize it in the 1950s. And you say, sometimes culture changes for the better. 1950s, we were probably a lot more racist than the 1950s, right? We were still in the era of Jim Crow. We hadn't had the civil rights legislation of the 60s. So you say, hey, culture changes for the better, but it also can change for the worse, and it also changes slowly. But you normalize bad behavior in small increments over time. So with clothing, the reason I've always said athletic leisure is the death of culture is because, first of all, it's revealing, and women probably shouldn't wear it. If you're wearing skin-tight clothing and you're going out of the house, you're doing all these things, it's not a good thing, because this idea, and it's one of the things that more conservative Islamic culture has right. I don't want to put women in a burqa. I don't want them to wear a hijab. I don't need them to not have the rights of men. But they have this one idea kind of correct, which is that they still have this idea of modesty. And modesty is a good thing. It's a good virtue for people to have. And you can be attractive, beautiful, sexy without having to have your tits out. You can do all of these things. And it's not a good thing to walk around and try and entice the opposite sex. I don't think men should do it. I don't think women should do it. I think women have an easier time doing that because men are more of a visual creature. But this is kind of how it works. Now you take the average person on the street who, you want to wear your sports bra and a pair of leggings to the grocery store, and you go, yeah, this isn't a good thing. But it didn't happen over time. It's a cultural norm now that women just think it's acceptable. But they think that because it happened slowly over time and it's been normalized to this point where all of a sudden now you can just wear a bra in public. Probably not a great thing. In clothing, it's one thing. But the thing that is dangerous about cultural normalization is that it can happen with insidious ideas that completely undermine the culture. And I made the point, we're watching this in real time right now with the idea of socialism. Right now, the socialists, the Democratic Socialists of America, are pushing an agenda that is so dangerous for the future of America. And it's pretty radical. But what's going to happen, and what you see happen now, is that they're pushing it so far to the left that it's going to come back. They're going to say, we can't go that far. We got to dial it back. But if you push it so far to the left, even when you dial it back, it's still going to have moved further left than it was beforehand. We saw this with the Democrats over the last 15 years already. There's a, hold on. Let me find it because this is good enough. This is one of my favorite memes. Oh, perfect. Man, it's so easy sometimes to find things on the internet. Love it. Okay, so this is what we saw happen already over the last few years. You say, okay, this is 2008. Here's what the political compass looks like. And this pretty much describes me. So here's me right here. I'm to the left of center. I'm right here. I'm not in the center. I'm on the left, but I'm right here. 2012, what happens? The Democrats just start running to the left. And all of a sudden, the center, it's moving closer. And then they keep running till we get to this woke progressive spot over here where they're so far left that the center is now here. And me, though I haven't moved, all of a sudden I'm on the right. This is exactly what's already happened. And we're watching it happen still. It's moving further and further away. This is what happened with the racial and sexual politics on the left, where all of a sudden they're like, you're a bigot because I say men shouldn't play in women's sports. You hate people because I say that policing in America fundamentally at its core is not a racist institution. Oh, you hate black people. I don't. I really don't. But this is what's happening. And we're watching it right now. This right here where we already say, well, this is absurd. Well, woke progressives, yeah, we say wokeism, it's dying. It's not dying, guys. It still exists, and it's moving further and further that direction. And what's happening is all of a sudden I tell people, they say, well, where are you on the political compass? You know, you're right or left. And I'd say I've stolen that Michael Knowles line. I'm to the right of Mussolini at this point. I am as far right as you can be because I haven't moved. I really believe there are some things that I've changed my opinion on. But I'm the same person. I have the same values, and we're watching this cultural normalization of the word socialism. Oh, socialism, it's fine. It's fine. No, guys, socialism killed 150 million people in the last century, maybe more. Socialism, communism, this leftist ideology, it is bad for the world. And these guys like Mamdani, they get in here with their grin. He puts on that fake smile and it just insidious ideology that he sort of, because we're talking about the Odyssey recently, that he just Trojan horses in behind that false veneer of affability. He thinks that he comes across like a nice guy. I just want everyone to be happy. And then, behind the eyes, behind the fake smile is accept the Jews, accept the people who have money, accept all these people that I'm going to throw in the gulags as soon as I have the opportunity, starting with Benjamin Netanyahu. They're bad guys. And this video, if anyone gets a moment, I want to, again, the guy's name is Adrian Markovac. The last name is spelled Markovac. Adrian Markovac. Really good video. I've only seen one of them. I'm not going to recommend his whole channel, but the video that was sent to me on cultural normalization, very, very nice, and I appreciate somebody wanting to talk about it. But anyway, getting back to it. Moving the Overton window takes time, but that level of acceptable discourse can move. And the more people attempt to shrink it and move it, the worse it is. We need to keep the Overton window as wide as possible. We need to treat as many topics as we can as something that are appropriate for discussion and debate, and we need to keep it where it is. When we're moving it, we say, whoa, these right-wing views are no longer acceptable, and we just keep cutting them out. This is where you create all these little pockets of dangerous ideologues that if you put them in the dark, they're going to form their own pseudo-society. They're going to form their own leagues. They're going to form their own clans. And you don't want it that. I always say sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's one of my favorite phrases because it's absolutely true. We need to bring ideas to the light and talk about them. But that doesn't mean we have to treat all of them as normal or all of them as good or take all of them seriously. Some of them, like this idea, these democratic socialists, all we have to do is read their ideas and know, oh, these guys are a joke. They haven't thought about this at all. They claim to be very educated and overly educated in many cases, but they don't know anything. And all you have to do is read any of their writing to say, oh, yeah, these guys are just morons. And they're easy to dismantle. Anyway, we're getting too ranty here. So we're going to stop it for the day. As always, guys, questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. I always appreciate any interactions we get on the post, even the negative ones. They're fun for me. I am Tyler Chrestman, and until next Friday, I hope you guys have a great week. I will catch you on the next episode.